Muy buenos días a todos, buenas tardes a los que ya están más allá de la hora que tenemos en Centroamérica. Mi nombre es Luz Marina Torres, yo trabajo en NovaComp y es un placer hoy abrir esta sesión del segundo día del evento del grupo de usuarios en Latinoamérica de Oracle. En esta oportunidad tenemos un invitado muy especial, nos acompaña desde Alemania Mike Dietrich. Mike va a dar su presentación en inglés por si acaso. Si alguien sabe alemán ahí ya le pueden estar comentando también en el chat. La presentación de Mike va a durar 45 minutos, al final de los cuales vamos a estar respondiendo las preguntas que nos hagan. Para recibir sus preguntas es importante que usen el chat que está ubicado en la esquina inferior derecha de esta pantalla. Los invitamos también a que vayan registrando sus fotos, nos comenten desde qué sitios se están conectando hoy a través de las redes sociales usando el hashtag que ya les vamos a poner ahí en el chat. Entonces, a partir de ahora, la presentación vamos a continuarla en inglés y le voy a dar la bienvenida a Mike para que inicie a compartirnos su contenido. Les recordamos que en la página pueden revisar toda la agenda. Hoy vamos a tener más de 20 speakers de diferentes nacionalidades que van a estar abordando diferentes temáticas de todo el mundo Oracle y estos nuevos lanzamientos que tenemos para ustedes. Hi, Mike. Welcome to our session today in this event for Latin America. We are having attendance from different countries in the region. They are very grateful to have you here. I know that is maybe afternoon for you in Munich, and I promise to the attendance that you are going to be here next year. You should come to Costa Rica for the presential event, and you are going to begin to learn some Spanish.
Yes,
so,
thank you.
Okay, Mike, I just tell the audience that we are going to receive some questions through the chat. So go ahead, welcome to the event, and thank you very much again for your time and for your knowledge here.
Good. Do you have to switch now to my slides, or can people see it already? No, you're muted. Oh, you're muted?
Oh. Sorry, go ahead and click on the screen sharing button.
Okay, wait. Then I share again. And okay. You interrupt me if you can't see the slides, okay? Good. So, hola and bom dia. That's actually all I can give you in Spanish and Portuguese. So I'm really happy to present here. Hopefully next year in person. I would love to do that. And then I promise I learn a few words of Spanish. Today's topic is it fixed in Oracle 23c? And this is a very unusual talk you will see now, because it got actually born at a user group conference in Poland a year ago. And we decided we need to give people, customers, a bit more insight into Oracle development processes, just to ease your life, because often it's a black box. And let me introduce very briefly myself. My name is Mike. I'm the product manager for database upgrades and migrations in Oracle. In 3 weeks, I will have my 25th anniversary in Oracle. So you see my hair is gray. And I work quite a while for this company. I do upgrades and migrations for almost 20 years now. And still, I love upgrades. I love my job. If you need more information about upgrades, migrations, patching, and much, much more, you may visit my blog, mikedietrich.de.com. You may also follow me on Twitter if you want. Then you see when I blog. And I promise I use Twitter solely for technical topics. So no cat pictures, no food pictures, and especially no politics on Twitter. If you think 45 minutes are not enough, we have 18 hours of recorded only technical seminars on our blogs. So my blog and Daniel's blog, Daniel works in my team out from Denmark. And you find really just technical content there, zero marketing, upgrade migrations, multi-tenant, cloud migrations, performance testing especially, and much, much more. So everything there on mikedietrich.de.com/videos. And these are our team blocks. So mine on the left side, Daniel's on the right side, dohdatabase.com for Daniel Overby Hansen. And I'm pretty certain that most of you know Rodrigo Jorge, who works out from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. He's part of our team as well, and Rodrigo's blog in the middle of the page. Warm up. Just to warm you up, for most of you, it's morning. For me, it's already 4 p.m. So my day has passed quite some time. So let me warm up you a little bit and with release and patching strategy. And first of all, a distinction between long-term and innovation releases. We do this distinction for almost a year now. So Oracle 19c is a long-term support release. You see here in the graphic, the black bar, long-term support, means this is the premium support time for the long-term support release. And there, everything is covered via your normal support contract, while the red bar for long-term support releases is normally either extra cost, or you have a ULA or an engineered system, then it's included at no extra cost. But typically it costs a little bit extra on top of your support fee if you need extended support. Innovation releases like 21c have only a very short support life, 2 years, maybe a bit more. And very important, there is no extended support for innovation releases. This means production releases, your production databases, all go to 19c now. And once the next long-term support release is out there, you move to the next long-term support release. And this is the graphic which really drives you, hopefully not crazy, but drives you forward. Because at some point we tell you, hey, support is running out for your release. And that means you scratch your head and then you say, oh, wait, I need to move forward. 11.204 is under market-driven support. This is an extra cost thing, which has a price tag of, I don't know, more than 20% of your support fee, but you get still fixes for 11.204 for security and for severity 1, and you have an ACS engineer from Oracle Advanced Customer Services helping you going forward. 12.102 is already in extended support. Be aware of that. 7 months or 8 months left. And I zoom into 12.2 and forward in a second. Before that, oh, here we are already. I think there's a hidden slide in the deck when you download it from the blog. And slides are on the blog as well. So mikedietrich.de.com/slides, by the way. There's a hidden slide which explains all the bars afterwards if you want to read about them. 12.201. This was the first 12.2 release. And then we changed the release numbering, and this puzzled people a bit. But 18c was nothing else than 12.202, and 19 is nothing different than 12.203. So in the old days, we would have said, these are the patch sets. Now it has a new release number, but the mechanism is the same. Since a lot of people still sat on 12.201, we added at no extra cost. This is why it's light red. Period called limited error correction support for critical issues, for security issues, and we still deliver patch bundles quarterly for 12.201. For 18c, life is over, so you have to move forward, and please, you all go to 19c. This is the release you upgrade to, and you see the black bar goes until end of April 2024. So from now on, that's almost 2.5 years premier support, plus followed by extended support. And there will be enough overlap to the next long-term support release, which will be Oracle 23c. And it's here in dotted lines because I can't give you a guarantee about the date when it gets released, but there will be enough overlap allowing you to bring your production databases then from 19c to 23c and have enough testing time. Just keep in mind, 23c has only CDB architecture. There's no non-CDB architecture then. And if this all is too much and too fast and you would like to read it up, on the slide you find, I think, one of the most important notes in my Oracle support, 742060.1. I call it the single source of truth because it has always all these dates inside. And just a quick recap, regarding patching, because that will be important in the follow-on slides. We have the base release like 19C, so you download 19.3.0, and then a quarter later, you can apply a release update. So this is a patch bundle which has optimizer fixes off by default, functional fixes, security fixes, and regression fixes. So a regression fix, for instance, is something you get on Aura 600 when you select stuff from Dual. This is typically what we call a regression, or something which has been broken by a previous patch. A quarter later, we release update 2. And this now settles on release update 1, so it's cumulative. Let's say a release update 1 had 400 fixes, release update 2 has now 800 fixes. It includes 400 fixes from release update 1 plus 400 new ones. The new ones here are marked in color codes, black or yellow. Why that? Because at the same time when we release this release update, we release also a revision 1 for release update 1. And this revision 1 has only the black bars, the new security and the new regression fixes. And a quarter later, now be aware, the slide gets complicated or colorful. We have now release update 3, which is not fitting on the slide anymore, only the header. We have on the very right side, revision 2, and this is normally the final revision for release update 1, with the red fixes, the new ones. And we have also for release update 2, revision 1. And you see, oh my God, that seems to be complicated. What should you do? Very easy. You stay on the left side, release updates, you go forward with release updates. The revisions are just made for like critical cases where you can't go to a release update or whatever reason. And you shouldn't stay on release update revisions too long, because there are only 2 normally. And with the next update you apply, you get a huge number of fixes. So it's better to stay with the release updates, especially also when you download one-off patches, because one-off patches often are available for the release updates, but almost never for the revision. Now, this was just to warm you up a bit. Let's start with a customer story. And I started my career in Oracle support. So I worked a lot with customers, and I know all the gory things which can really hurt and cause pain. So let us start with a true customer story. And you may know this situation. You hit a problem. Okay, that happens. Oracle is a complex software. And then you open an SR because you Google and you can't find the solution. And in my Oracle support, you don't find it either. You open an SR, you work with Oracle support, and at worst case, you hit a bug. What do you do if you hit a bug? What does support do if you hit a bug? Then support creates a bug entry, and hopefully somebody in development fixes that. Then support gets back to you and says, hooray, don't worry, it's fixed in Oracle 23C. And then you say, wait a bit. You mean in 2023? We have 2021, right? So what should you do now? And often I've seen this several times. The service request got closed. It's fixed in 23C. And this is a very disappointing situation for you. So at this point now, we have 3 involved parties. You, Oracle support, and development. And we need to work together to find a quick solution. And this is the purpose of this talk. I would like to explain you now how we get out of this situation and what that really means if somebody tells you it's fixed in 23C or in 21C. So let's dig a little bit into the patching insights. First of all, if you hit an error, you report it via a service request, and at first, the service request gets inspected by an automation. And the automation makes sure that everything is there and already analyzes things like trace files and puts it in the right format in the ESR for the engineer to ease their lives as well. So this is the first step. If I ask you, if it would be now in a room, I would ask you for numbers, what do you think? And when we asked before how many service requests are solved by automation, we saw everything from nothing, nowhere, to like 90%. And I can tell you 60% of the service requests get solved by automation. So I know, because often customers tell me about SRs, that sometimes automation is also painful. It's like a little bit talking to a bot. But if you are not happy, I show you a link, and you can always wake up an SR or escalate it, and to wake it up from automation if it goes wrong. But they improve constantly, and we tell the guys who run that. So 60% are solved by automation and never hit a service request engineer at the end of the day because it got solved, which is not bad, actually. The support engineer, in worst case, like the case before where the guy scratched his head and the hair, the support engineer has to create a bug. And in this case, it helps us a lot if we have a clear description, a reproducible test case, logs, traces, dumps are helpful. And if you had time and you did that by yourself, you tested already with a new release. Last week, I had just a customer who downloaded 21C and tried it and said, hey, same problem happens with 21C. Yeah? So this eases our lives. It's not mandatory, that part, but it's helpful if we have that. So you have this tiny little thing now crawling through my screen here, a bug. What happens now? First of all, when your case needs further attention, and when you download the slides from my blog afterwards, this link here marked in red gives you a support blog post which tells you exactly how to cry for help. So don't be frustrated behind your desk. Follow that blog post if something is not going well for you, and it tells you exactly the steps what to do, and it's not complicated, no worries. Best thing, this is just from me, there's always a support telephone number in your country. Call that, you reach the hub, and tell them to escalate the SR, because they make an entry and the engineer will see that. Then, ideally, the developer creates a fix. And when I say developer, I mean men, women, many people in development in Oracle. And this fix goes into the main branch. What does that mean? I explain in a second. When the fix is there, the developer has to verify the fix. And verifying the fix means kick off regression tests. So depending on where the fix is located, a number of regression tests need to be run. And there could be also a subset of tests before the fix can now be merged into the main code line. All tests together run daily. In our testing farm in OCI, accumulate to 25,000 hours per day testing, which completes approximately 1 million functional tests. So every day you get an idea how much compute power we have behind the testing farm. If the test is not working as expected, then the developer sees a diff. So expected results versus real results. There's a diff, then it has to be fixed. The fix needs to be fixed, and then the regression tests need to be kicked off again. If the fix is okay, it can be merged into the main code, and the merge can only happen when there are no failing tests. So what does this mean with the main code? And this is one of the purposes of this talk, to explain you what happens now and why the support engineer told you this is fixed in 23C. So you see here on top, the top line is the main code line. Main code at the moment is 23C. So 23C, at some point, it will be branched. That means we split off a branch from the main code line. This will become then later the 23C release label, and the main code line becomes then 24 or 25 or whatever. But at the moment, main code line is 23C. So we have that fix. The developer created that fix. It's the black bubble here on the slide, and this will be now merged into the main code line. And this is when support tells you, hey, hooray, 23C, it's all fixed. And this is also what you see then in a bug entry, what we see in the bug entry. So this is here just a copy-paste from the bug database. And here it says fixed in 23C. Okay, what do we do now? Do you need to upgrade to 23C? No, you can't. It's not there, right? And 21 doesn't help you. It's fixed in 23C. So what needs to be done here? In this case, we need a backport. The backport now creates that fix on top of your current software label, which may be, for instance, 1913 RU. So what happens is a request has to be filed, and then the backport gets created for that specific release, maybe 1913 or 1980. And if you request that, you request it via a service request, you ask support. So if the SR got closed, you reopen it and you tell the support person, hey, and now I need a backport, and upload your OPatch LS inventory with it, because this is required that development sees for which exact patch release we need this fix. So what happens here, if we go back to that slide, let's say you're 1912, not 1913 yet, 1912 from July, and this fix needs to be built now on top of 1912 for you on your operating system platform, maybe on Linux, maybe on Solaris or AIX, whatever you have. And then you get this shipped via My Oracle support. When we request a backport, there's an automatic flow. So hopefully everything works by automation. But if there are conflicts, there is manual work required. The conflicts can happen because of dependencies of certain libraries and things like that. And if it has to be manually processed, this will postpone the delivery usually, because then it goes into a developer queue and then it has to be fixed manually. While automation, if it can be done by automation, and here it depends a lot from product and product stack, like if it's optimizer or if it's data pump, it depends if it can most likely be automated or not. Some products are better, others are worse due to the architecture of the stack itself. And if automation works, you get it usually in 2 to 3 days. One of the reasons why I told you before, go with release updates. Here we have an example for a typical recommended patch, a one-off here. And you see this one-off is already available on 19.4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 10, and 12. You miss 19.5 and 19.7. So here, if you need it for 19.7, you need to request a backport. Otherwise, you download it. You don't see any fixes for RURs here. And this is one of the main reasons why I tell you stay with RUs. It's way more likely that you find a one-off you may need for the RU already. But wait a bit. Then at some point you realize, okay, I applied this one-off, but why is it not fixed in the next RU already? You would expect it. It's critical. Oh, well, what goes into the next release update? First of all, we do really intensive screening for candidates. Support can request an inclusion as well. So what could you do now? You can open an SR and say, hey, my patch 4711, this is so important, I want to request an inclusion into a next RU. That is what you could do. But believe us, we do a lot of screening internally. So for you, the window to see what is important is Node 5551. That is very easy to remember. That's why we picked 5551. Here you see the recommended one-off patches on top of a release update. And make it here in the upper left corner, you see the yellow star. If you click there, you have it in your favorites in Moss. Now you see a list here for 1911 as an example for the database. So in 1911, there were here a bit more than 5, actually, we cut that off. But you see a number of fixes recommended on top of 1911. And you see also that some of them are fixed in 1912. So this is good. You know, if I take 1912, those are fixed. But you see also this Aura 20,000 data pump. And unfortunately, this one will never appear in a release update. I will tell you in a second why not. But if you depend on this, I have unfortunately a customer, a large one here. They depend on that. They have to apply it over and over again. So first of all, you can request that. But what we do here, you see in the header line of this bug here, AIM. This is our AI monitoring. So we have bots running on our bug database and trying to identify already issues we need to include into the next RU. And one of the criteria is how many service requests are associated with that issue. So you as a customer, if you got told in a service request that this is a bug, make sure that the support engineer puts that bug number also in the screen you see. Because this means the counter in the bug database, the system and the bug database are connected to each other, ticks one up. The more often an issue is associated with an SR, the more likely that fix gets included, if possible, into the next or the following subsequent RU. So ensure that your service request is associated and tagged with the bug if support tells you there's a bug associated here. And then we have other things which make sure there are some criteria to make sure something is included, but there are also a few strict rules. If the patch, and this applies now to this data pump Aura 20,000 patch, is not rug rolling, it can't be included. Because a release update or a bundle patch in the old terminology is rolling by definition. And it needs to be standby first as well. This is easier typically, but rug rolling is a real constraint for some patches, for some stacks, as soon as the API gets changed, which happens normally in data pump. And this is why data pump patches are normally not part of RUs. Check the README here. When you check the README, you see here this line. This is non-rug rolling installable. This is non-standby first. That means this issue or this fix will never be part of an RU. Unfortunately, never included. We have also another criteria which hinders us to include everything. We have a limitation in terms of how many fixes we can include in an RU. And we have to run regression tests, believe it or not. I know that there are some sarcastic comments, I'm pretty certain, but we know that we had some quality, I would say, issues here and there, and there's a big force now to improve that. More resources to have more regression tests run with the RUs and the revisions. This is just giving you an overview on how many fixes got included. And this is also my support heart says, stay on the newest, or at least newest -1, which would be now 1912 or 1913. I haven't updated that slide for 1913 yet, but you see we started relatively low with 300 or 200 to 500 fixes approximately until 99. And then we decided we need to include much, much more just to ensure quality. So altogether, when we look back now from 1913 on top of the base release, I think there are 5,300 fixes when you are on 1913 on top of 19.3. And this is why you really should take care and patch at least twice a year. And another restriction for the inclusion is your issue is so critical and you expect it in the next release update, but there's also a code-free state. As with every software project, we have a free state. And when this free state is there, then we say, hey, full stop. We can't include something after the free state because otherwise we can't push the regression tests through. And this is also sometimes a reason why certain bundles get delayed, because if something gets found in the regression test, it needs to be fixed and then the tests need to be kicked off again. And this could lead to delays. Windows is such a candidate. Typically, this can lead to delays often as well. But we have this code-free state, 6 to 12 weeks. So now, since 1913 is out, if I want something for 1914 in, it will be very, very hard because it could be that the free state is already set. And so it could be only 1915, which would be April 2022. Just keep that in mind. And again, these release updates go through extensive testing, so more than 1 million functional tests, 25,000 hours daily on the testing farm, also for the release updates. And that's it? Or is there more? What do you think? Quick overview on patch types. What is a one-off patch? That's a single fix. Or some people try to call it interim patch, but that never made their street, except for in some MOS nodes. So single patch, one-off. Backport, this is now taking the one-off and backporting it on top of a given release, like 1912, on top of 1912. And a merge patch is combining several one-offs together, like 5 optimizer fixes. They all work in the same lib, so we need to merge a fix. And a bundle patch is a release update or revision, on the old days a PSU, a BP, that combines many fixes, and they are always rug rolling and standby first. What is in a patch? What do we find if we dissect it? We find files, so something which goes into bin Oracle or here SRVCTL or time zone patches. Time zone patches, by the way, are never part of the RU because time zone patches are not rug rolling installable. And we have also typically, not always, but typically also a PL-SQL and SQL portion of the patch, which alters a table or creates an index or a view or a type or replaces a synonym or whatever, something like that. Now, how do you apply them? Your key to apply the binaries is either opatch or opatch auto in a rug environment, and your key to apply the SQL portion is data patch. So opatch applies the binaries to the Oracle home, and all instances on that server using that home must be down. Instances using another home can be up and running. And data patch applies now SQL and PL-SQL changes, and the instance need to be, or the database need to be up in normal mode, not in upgrade mode, please. Not even for OJVM, that's a myth. OJVM does not require startup upgrade. It's very stupidly phrased in the readmes. Go to my blog, I wrote a longer blog post about that. OJVM doesn't require startup upgrade. And then we have platforms. And the patch could be generic. For instance, it could be just an upgrade script. And it's generic because it goes into rdbmsadmin, and that looks exactly the same on Unix than on Windows, than on ZLinux, whatever. A patch works for all platforms then, and it's independent, while we have also port-specific fixes. And a port-specific fix fixes something which happens only on a specific platform. Like this issue is only happening with AuraDim, and AuraDim is Windows, so you won't see that issue on Unix anywhere. You see it also when you go to My Oracle support and when you download a patch, because there you can find here under language, generic platform. This is a generic one, like this data pump script is generic. And here down there, HP Itanium, this is now port specific. Yeah, and why do we always ask for opatch? We have to. We need to avoid conflicts. Opatch LS inventory is really key, and my recommendation is when you open an SR, always upload opatch LS inventory just to avoid that question, can I have your opatch LS inventory? Makes it easier. We need your opatch LS inventory to avoid conflicts. So what happens with this specific data pump patch? It patches dpload.sql. So dpload.sql was in the base release, and now we have a one-off for it, and this one-off fixes this yellow line in dpload. So all is good. You apply that. Unfortunately, you hit another issue with dpload again. Support tells you, hey, no problem. We have a fix for that. It's dpload fix number 2. But if you apply that, it wipes out now the left one, the yellow one. So which one should you take? In this case, we have a conflict. This is what we see in your opatch LS inventory. And we need now a merge patch. And a merge patch will now combine the two fixes into one, hopefully done by automation, but not guaranteed. So always attach the output of opatch LS inventory to your service request, just here from the heart, and give it a meaningful name. opatch_LS inventory text. Don't name it opatch LS inf or Banco de Dados patches, or Alemany patches, or I can't read the Polish one, the last one here. That's Polish, actually, with characters we don't have in our alphabet. So again, pro tip, name it opatch lisinventory.txt. Makes your life easier, makes everything easier for the automation and for the support engineer as well. So please do that, okay? Yeah, but now you scratch your head again and you tell me, Mike, this is great news, fantastic, but I'm on Windows. Yes, Windows is different. I can tell you, because when I started 25 years ago in Oracle support, at this time we just flipped from Oracle 7.2.3 to 7.3.4. And this was basically the first release where we had the first stable edition for Windows. Oracle on Windows came out with 7.3.4. And as I was the newbie, what did my colleagues do? They put me in a corner, gave me a compact machine and said, hey, there's Windows on it. You're the Windows guy now. So I started doing all these Windows SRs at this time. So I know Windows is different. And Windows, when we look at the patches, it's even there different, not only from the OS architecture. So we don't have one-offs right now on Windows. We have backports, but only for a future bundle. We don't have merges where we combine several one-offs. And of course, we have the bundles, but they are still called bundle patches. And there's a good reason for that. I explain on the next slide. They come quarterly, but usually that's our experience with a delay of 4 to 6 weeks. And don't shoot the messenger here. I don't know why that is. I can't explain it. They are also rack rolling and standby first, and they are cumulative. Now, a Windows bundle, and this is very, very important to understand if you're on Windows, and a release update from the same quarter usually have a diverging number of patches. Because due to the fact that on Windows we don't deliver one-offs, we have to squeeze them into the next bundle. And this may be also a reason why Windows gets sometimes delayed, because the number of fixes typically is much higher, or not much higher, but significantly higher than in a normal RU, because we have to squeeze in things as we don't give out one-off patches normally. So be aware of that. And then what you see is when you go on my blog, when there's a new quarter, and I know I missed the October one, but it's coming soon. I quarterly normally blog about the new patch bundles, and then you click here and say latest Windows bundles in this very important MOS node, second most important MOS node, the download reference assistant, and you see here 1912, the bundle patch, and the link is there. And then you click on that link, and it says details not found. What does that mean? In that case, also on the same blog post, I always link the critical patch update program availability document. And there we have the section 2.2, post-release patches. Go there, and here you see Windows was delayed. This lists the patches which are delayed and an approximate date when they should be available. And this is the reason why the link is there. So the placeholder on MOS is already there, but the patch is not in it yet. And so you see details for patch not found. This is not very intelligent. MOS should have told you, hey, it is delayed or something like that. It's coming, ideally with a date, but we don't own MOS, so I can tell you only how it works. And this is the purpose of this talk here. So Oracle on Windows, yes, is different. Our development platform, the operating system platform we develop on is Linux. It's currently a mix of Linux 7 and Linux 8, but all the development systems at the moment will be changed to Linux 8, Oracle Linux 8. So we develop the Oracle code on Oracle Linux, and it's moving to 8 right now. Part of the development systems are on Oracle Linux 8 already. And then when we have the code on Linux, then it will be ported. That means we have porting teams, and the porting teams port then the Linux code to Windows, to Spark, to Intel Solaris only until 19C. After 19C, there is no Intel Solaris support anymore. but there may be a surprise pretty soon. IBM AIX to Z-Linux and to HPUX Itanium. For 21C, for the innovation release, it's available for Linux, for Windows. It is already available also for HPUX Itanium. It won't be available for Z-Linux, for AIX, and for Spark. No worries, all these platforms are still supported. 23C will support all of them except for Intel Solaris and maybe one additional platform, but they are not desupported or whatever. It's just a decision from development. Say, hey, 21C is not available on AIX, Z-Linux, and on Spark. And just to finish that and round this up with some fun at the end, some of the platforms from our bug tracking system. And I told you, 25 years ago, I started, and I know that some people maybe in this talk here who use Oracle for a long while. So you see here some platforms coming up like SCO Unix, SGI IRIX, Trusted Solaris we have here, Novel NetWare, Pyramid, Data General, or whatever, Sequent, Ncube. These are not supported anymore. We had Linux Spark. I wasn't even aware that we had Linux Spark. And so Oracle was supported on a lot of platforms in the past. And maybe we have a surprise pretty soon. Let's see. So final words here. If you need more of that content, we have a YouTube channel. So when you go to my blog, to mikedietrich.de.com/videos, the YouTube link is on top, and feel free to subscribe. There are more than 888 subscribers. I think we are almost at 2,000 at the moment. And then you see every second day, I think we publish a new video and commented videos. Feel free to tune in. Feel free to check the videos. And I would like to thank you now. I will stop sharing and then look into the chat if there are any questions in the chat here. Let me see. So, that's the developer here, the first one. This looks like a German name here. Stefan Köhler, I know this guy. So Stefan says, hey, does the developer need to wait for night to trigger a patch test, or can it be done instantly as well? Now, that's a very good question, actually. So what happens is we have a queue. When I fix something now in the code, I have to trigger a merge, somebody has to approve it, and then it gets put into, and I have to decide which regression tests need to be run. So in our case, for instance, for something, I add a column in a dictionary view. That requires long upgrade regress, which does a database upgrade, followed by a downgrade, followed by an upgrade, and additional tests. So in my fix, I have to specify now which regression test needs to be done, or the environment tells me, and then it gets into a queue. And if I'm very, very lucky, it gets executed this night or tomorrow morning or something like that. If I'm very unlucky, it could take also 48 hours until my merge fix is then coming into the queue and getting regression tested. So it's a queue, and it really depends, but you don't have to wait, and I have no influence. So even if we prioritize something, we have no influence how things get handled into the queue. But OJVM will not require upgrade mode. So that's also a very good question from René. Raoul. First of all, OJVM, even today, does not require upgrade mode. In 21C, there's a significant change with OJVM. In 21C, there are no OJVM bundle patches anymore. They are part of the normal RU. So when you apply an RU like 21.4, the OJVM is already in it. And that means it will be applied as standard, and there's no different handling anymore of OJVM patches. So luckily, it took until 21. For 19, you still have the separate ones. But in 21, it's like any other patch you apply, and it's part of the standard RU. No separate download. And time zone upgrade will not require upgrade mode. Yes and no. So the time zone patch itself funny enough, it's not rug rolling, but you can apply the binaries online while your database is running, because it copies only files in Aura Core zone info. That's the good news. The bad news is now you have the file in your home, but the database doesn't know about it. You need to run the time zone script. The UTL, UPG, tset apply, no, check first and then apply. The check script is harmless, but the apply script causes downtime because it will restart your database twice. And there's no way around that right now. In 21C, there's a workaround, but I confess I haven't tested it by myself. I just read the documentation. There's some sort of online patching of time zone available without downtime. I haven't tried it yet. In 19C, it means you run the apply script. It starts your database in upgrade mode. And then, I mean, you have downtime when your database is restarted in upgrade mode. Then it applies the time zone changes to the dictionary, because we use timestamp with time zone data type at several locations in a dictionary. Then it brings the database down, brings it up in normal mode. And if you have timestamp with time zone data in your database, in your user data, then it changes also your user data. And I consider this as downtime, because then you get exclusive logs. And you can't seriously run an application there. So the patch itself, the binary, online, not rug rolling, but online. Unfortunately, when you make it now, say hello to the database, I'm the new time zone setting, then it's downtime. No way out. Transparent rolling updates to OJVM components, Oracle data. Yeah, thank you for sharing the mouse note here. Yes, any other questions? If there are no other questions, I give back to the host here and would like to thank you.
I'm going to say something in Spanish. Si alguien tiene una pregunta y quiere hacerla en español, la pueden hacer y la podemos traducir. There are more questions over there, Mike.
When will OPatch upgraded a YUM? That's a fantastic question, Peter, but I have no idea. Because OPatch, our team, or my VP's team, Roy Swanger is my vice president, and we own DataPatch. So I can pretty clearly tell you what happens in DataPatch. And we have really super cool developers on DataPatch who try their best. With OPatch itself, it's a different story, because it's not in our team. It's not even in the org. It's a very different story. So I can't say anything about future plans for OPatch, especially regarding YUM, unfortunately. Why are some patches not DataGuard first? This has to do DataGuard first or standby first patching means then you apply the binary on the standby first, and then you apply it on the production, but you apply data patch after a switchover. And some patches do not allow to have this mixed environment running. This is a reason. OJVM, for instance, does not allow that. There are some reasons for the Java subsystem, which says you can't have a higher version on the standby while you have the lower version on the production at this point, and before you sync it. And some patches or some patch architecture forbids that, unfortunately. That's simply the reason. And not many are not standby first. There are a few, unfortunately. Any other questions? No, if there are no other questions. For those, I see there are some Germans here, which is pretty cool. On Thursday this week, 10 a.m. Central European time. For you in Costa Rica or in Colombia or in Argentina, it's too early of the day. But we have a 2-hour fallback seminar coming. So if you want to learn how to fall back, how to roll back, even with standbys, with DataGuard, with RUC, on Thursday this week. It's just on my blog, the registration link today. So you may tune in. And I would like to thank you. It was my pleasure. And hopefully next time in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Mike, I'm going to write down your blog again, because it seems like many people is interested in getting to know you more and get access to all the resources that you just mentioned. And also, I would like to invite everybody to continue in our event. The next session is about DPT. It starts at 10 a.m. Costa Rica and Mexico time. And remember that we have 2 tracks at the same time. The other session is on-premise to cloud migration, step by step. So we're going to have a couple of speakers, Nacho Cugil and Ricardo Gonzalez, on the upcoming conference. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a final comment, a final advice for all the attendees today?
No, thanks everybody, and I hope that all goes well, and I hope that we see each other next year in person again, because I miss really physical hugs and people in an audience and looking into eyes of people and not just into my webcam here. Okay, take care everybody, and see you next year.
Thanks to you. Auf Wiedersehen. Have a great night today.
Look, you speak still some German.
No, a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Have a great night. Gracias a todos por asistir. Recuerden que el evento sigue hoy. Vamos hasta las 5:50, donde vamos a tener nuestra clausura. No se pueden perder ninguna de las sesiones porque de verdad que tenemos speakers muy especiales como Mike. Recuerden que en la página web del grupo están todos los links para acceder a las conferencias y van a quedar registradas, grabadas estos materiales para que después puedan acceder a ellos. Muchas gracias a todos y que tengan un feliz día. Bye, bye.